Put up a list of questions.
You won't do, I tell you, lady.
Well, first of all, where were you born, Marian?
I was born in Camden, Tennessee. Just a little bitty, like, welcome on one side and hurry back on the other. Up at the top, it turns it off. Toward the door, front door.
Yeah, it's the noise
Got
from
it?
that is going to drown you out, I think.
Okay.
All right.
This was a little town that says welcome on one side and hurry back on the other. I don't even know the population. It's a very small town.
What part of Tennessee?
Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
About 70 miles from Nashville. My brothers and sisters told me that the doctor got me in a mud puddle because I was born at home.
How many brothers and sisters?
Well, I was Dad's only child. When Dad married Mother, she was a widow with 3 little ones. My one next to me was 18 months old when her daddy got killed, and my brother was like 4 when his daddy got killed. Then there was one between them. So I was the black sheep of the family, probably.
How
But-
so? Why do you call yourself the black sheep?
Well, I was a latecomer.
Hmm.
3 of them was already there, and they waited for me, and then they said they found me in a mud puddle. But Mother had me. She was the little woman. Mother was the little woman. And I was an 11-pound baby. So I told at church one time, I don't know if you've heard the story with Janine, we were talking one time at Christmas luncheon, and the topic came up about what we used to weigh. And I said, the doctor asked me the one time what was the least I ever weighed, and I said 11 pounds. And I said, he said, I don't mean that. And I said, for the life of me, I can't figure out why God didn't take that egg and separate it and make 2 normal-sized twins out of that 11-pound baby. And Janine at church, she says, God knew we couldn't stand 2 of you. And I said, I've never been put down so bad so much in my life, but I loved it because she came back just like that with it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. She's a breath of fresh air.
Now, what did your parents do? What did your parents do?
Mother was a housewife. And Daddy worked part-time farmer, part-time orchard keeper, till we moved to Dickson, where we joined the quartet. But now, I started in Tennessee, but we moved to Cleveland when I was 2, Cleveland, Ohio. So I was reared in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mhm.
And when we came back to Tennessee, I was in the 6th grade, I guess about 12 years old. And I was trying to find a picture I have of where I started singing in Cleveland was at the Akron Baptist Temple. And I have a picture in my bedroom somewhere if I can find it. Not a picture of our quartet or anything, but standing on the stage looking out on the congregation of the church. And it was quite a large church. And that's where I made them wait for me to tie my shoe. I put my foot up on the chair to tie my shoe, and the quartet had to wait till I got my shoe tied before they could start singing again. But I can remember vividly singing.
When did your parents sing or play music? How did
No,
you
my
get
dad
into?
did.
Yeah.
My dad always did. We usually had somebody else playing for us until Mother had to take over, because the one that played for our quartet, he finally died, and we were up the creek without a piano player. So Mother played. She just didn't have much confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so she took over playing for the quartet, and as you see, she's in the picture over there. So she got to go with us and travel with us and play for us. And
What did your father sing? What
my
part?
dad was the lead.
Mm.
And then Henry was the bass, low down bass singer, and Everett was the tenor, and they were both plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
And Daddy worked at garage filling station as a parts manager for repaired cars.
Mm-hmm.
And he told us one time that his job was interfering with his singing. He just didn't care for it too much, you
I
know,
know
just
the feeling.
interfering with his singing.
And how did you get inducted into the quartet?
Browbeaten, probably. I can remember one time I wanted to play dolls with my sister in Cleveland. I hate to put this on a record, but I wanted to play dolls. We were playing paper dolls. And Dad called me to come down to the parlor or the dining room, wherever the piano was. I can see it by the steps, but I don't know what they call the room. Just to learn a song, and I didn't want to, so I fussed about it. And we had a bench, and Mother would sit in the middle, Daddy would straddle one end, and I'd straddle the other end. Well, as I got on the bench, I said, I wish I couldn't sing a single note. Ka-wham! I got slapped off the bench into the floor. And my sister said he should never have done that. Said, you're just a kid, you just wanted to play paper dolls. But I never said it again. So it was just, that was part of my life.
But you must have taken to it over your brothers and sisters and turned
Oh, my brothers and
and
sisters didn't care anything about it.
Yeah.
Didn't care anything about it at all. My sister used to say, well, the people in her church asked her, was I the one that got all the talent in the family? And I said, no, I'm not. I answered it. I said, she can sing, she just doesn't have any confidence, you know.
Mhm.
And she's afraid to get up and make a mistake. I said, make one. Make a big one if you're going to make a mistake, you know. But she's not that, she wasn't that way. So I'm the only one that's left.
So did you actually hit the road as a family, so to speak, or did
Yeah,
you
we
just
had-
play
we had-
churches around?
You
in
had a
Cleveland?
Davis trio for quite a few years. I had an accordion, and we sang Mother and tenor, and Daddy in the lead, and me in the alto, and playing the accordion. And we went to churches around the Cleveland area. Then we moved back to Tennessee, and through, I guess, the grapevine, Daddy latched on to a bass singer and a tenor singer, and that was just what he was needing, you know, singers, looking for singers to get a quartet started, because he loved music, he loved to sing. And the next thing you know, that picture that was there with me, 13 years old, we were in our living room practicing for the Dickson Rangers, and that was before we cut any records or anything, but this is one of the 8 up there.
Was that a big time with, it seems like there was a time when gospel quartets were quite the thing.
Oh yeah, with Wally Fowler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know about
Oh,
him or
yeah.
not, do you?
Yeah.
When I was dating in high school, we used to go to Wally Fowler's all-night singing. The quartet would be singing there. And then, of course, I'd be with this guy that traveled with us, where he wanted to sing so bad, but he couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. So he just listened, you know. But I was dating him at the time, and we took buses from different places to go to Nashville, to the Grand Ole Opry. And when I'm saying all night, I'm talking like they break up at maybe at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, sing all night long. And that was from Spear Family, the Happy Goodmans, Blackwood Brothers, you name them. The ones that are on the road all the time were there for the Wally Fowler's all night singing. And
Did they communally sing with the congregation at all, or this was just strictly a show?
I'm sorry.
Did they ask the or not congregation, but the audience to sing along at all?
No.
It wasn't that kind of a thing.
No, it wasn't that kind of a thing.
It
no.
was just a performance. Yeah.
Yeah, just performance. And at that time, we had our little old quartet. We had, I remember, we never had more than 2 microphones, if we even had 2.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we'd huddle around one microphone, and we didn't have a drummer or, you know, like they use now. It was strictly a piano player.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have, each one of them has their own microphone. They have a background, and everybody's going to sing good that's got a band behind them, you know.
Yeah.
But we started out with nothing but just us. And I can remember when we cut those records, we were in the back of a furniture store that Henry owned. In fact, his son still owns it in Dickson. And the radio engineer came down and cut the plastic records, and we watched him cut them as we were singing. And it was fascinating to me.
What year was that?
Let's see. I graduated in 51. It must have been probably 48, 49, somewhere around there.
So that was a furniture factory in Dickson, Tennessee?
No, a furniture store.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Friendly Neighbor store is still there, as far as I know. And Henry's son, Dale, runs it and also has real estate down there. But they still have a radio program on Sunday morning, and they still play these records. And they're 50-something years old, and they're still playing them and still getting requests for them.
Yeah.
But I can't sing like I used to, because I used to have a higher voice.
Now, where did the Dickson Rangers and your family get your material? How did you choose the songs that you
If we
decided on?
If we liked it.
Just if you liked them? Was there any specific niche that group was in?
There's one specific thing that it might be of interest to you. Marvin Dalton wrote several good songs. He was a Church of Christ. I think he was a preacher. He was Church of Christ, and he came to Dickson to teach a singing school, which is to teach shape notes. Now, if you don't know what shape notes are, I don't know how I can explain it to you. People that read
I know what shape notes are.
Yeah, but people that read music don't know what I mean by shape notes, but it's an individual shape of a note, and I could play it whether you've got a staff there or not. If you just write that note out on a piece of paper, I could play the song. I don't need the spaces and the lines to play it, you know, because of the shape. Whereas the regular music, the little round thing, looks like something to me it's Greek. But he wrote several good songs. What a Savior was one of them. I love that song. I sung it in Easter many times.
Can you sing a few bars?
Yeah, I can. And also, I found that we were the first quartet to cut his record for Looking for a City. Now, after we cut it, the Spear family cut it, the Happy Goodmans cut it. I don't know how many others cut it. But that's when they begin to modulate it up, different steps a little bit higher. But we were the privileged ones to cut the first record from Marvin's Looking for a City. And at the time he cut it and we were singing it, it didn't dawn on me to check out the scripture to see where he got this scripture. But I have, since I've gotten older and more mature, I've checked out most all the songs that I know to find where they come from in the scripture. And Marvin read in the scripture where we were pilgrims, just passing through, looking for a city that's already completed, you know. And that's where he got his idea for looking for a city. But he stayed in our home, and he taught me, at the time I was probably about 12, 13, maybe a little older. He let me play his accordion and taught me what I knew about accordions, about how to center on the C bass, and it was 120 bass, and learned to pump it and play it at the same time, you know, and I didn't think I'd ever learn how. But he was very patient with me. And after he taught me how to do that, Mother and Dad got me a second-hand accordion, and I could tone it down till it was almost a whisper. And then, of course, many years later, when I had married and moved to Alabama, we had a fire in our home on Mother's Day, and it got the accordion. The fire chief wanted to know, was it a heater? And I said, well, did I have a heater in the room? And I said, no. And he said, well, there's something with metal bars or strips on it. I said, that's my accordion. And they had to throw it out the window because it was on fire. So when I replaced that by the insurance replacing what they could replace it, I could never get it toned down. Like the other one, I could just make it whisper for the three of us, you know. But the other one was rah, and I couldn't get it to tone down. So we didn't do much trio work after that. I've used it, you know, solo and concert and things like that.
It sort of sounds like an organ, which is what you play now.
Well, no, there's a different sound about an accordion. They call it a stomach Steinway. And my dad, they had a brace that hooked around, and it clipped it on behind my back. And he used to tell people it was like hooking up a mule to hook that harness on to keep it from falling off of me, you know. But we went to several places with the trio.
Did anyone play the guitar or fiddle in your family?
Mm-mm.
Just strictly piano?
My son is the only one that plays the guitar. Martha might play a little bit, but I don't think so. Barbara does now. But Martha's the type that has to have the music in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
They both were taught piano when they were young, not by me, by a music teacher. And as you know with children, it was a battle to get them to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them one day they'd be glad they had. Now Martha, of course, is glad now, but Steve has gone back to hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
If he can hear it, he can play it.
Mm-hmm.
Now a piano, I don't know if he can do anything with a piano or not.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the only one in the family that plays a guitar. And I did brag about him playing a 12-string. He does play a 12-string.
Well, he plays very well and
Except
sings
when
very
Mama
well.
wants him to, that he
Mhm.
brings a 6-string.
Well, what are some anecdotes that you remember about playing on stage and about people, well-known musicians that perhaps you've met?
We had, I ought to let you hear this, I'll let you hear the tape that I have from the singing. Henry, Dad and I were the only two left besides Henry, and we went down one day and we spent the night with him and went to church with him the next day. And he was telling on this tape about the song, the choo-choo. The people used to call it the choo-choo train. And it was the bass would take over. Don't you hear that choo-choo-choo and choo-choo-choo? And then the rest of us come down the railroad track, coming down the track. And he said we were at a high school auditorium one time singing that and he said when we got to the choo-choo-choo, and he said the L&N Central came by and said, blasted out their horn and said people just roared laughing because it was just like we were calling it to come, you know.
Yeah.
And that's one of them that I can remember vividly. And another one is a song that they found that they all liked, called When Fair Heaven I See. And I was still in school in Cleveland, and Daddy told me, he said, Shorty, well, I should tell you folks, that's what I've called all my life, is Shorty. If he called me Marian, I'd turn around, who are you talking to? But he said, Shorty, he says, I'll give you $5 if you can learn to sing that song. So unbeknownst to my dad, when I got home from school, my mother sat down with me at the piano and taught me that song. So when the quartet met that night to try that song out, I sang my part. And Henry said on this tape, he said, Shorty did it better than the rest of us did, but we didn't know why, you know. But I said, do you think this kid gave Mother any of that $5? No, I did not. But my granddad used to call it the chicken clucking song, because that was the melody and the tempo of it, and he used to call it the chicken clucking song. And I've tried and tried and tried to get words to that song, and I can't find them.
What's the name again?
When Fair Heaven I See.
When Fair Heaven I See.
So if you're good with a computer, Abby, I'd love for you to get that. I'll sing it someday at church. I can't remember all the words. It's been 50-something years since I sang it, you know, but it's a rouser. It moves fast.
Yeah.
And let's see, there's another time when we sang, we were called back to the stage 7 times one time for looking for a city. And we sang it 7 times before they let us get off the stage. I guess because of the child alto singer. I don't know how old I was at the time. But it was a Tennessee song. It was not an Ohio song. I hadn't learned it in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be a Tennessee song.
Do you remember how it goes? Do you remember how it goes?
Oh, absolutely.
Sing a few bars of it.
You want it on the piano?
Sure.
Where do I gotta go down that thing? B flat, B that. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here among the shadows in a weary land. Here among the shadows in a lonely land, looking for a city built above, burdened down with sorrow, turning on again, looking for a city built above, looking for a city where we'll never die. There the sainted millions never say goodbye. There we'll meet our Savior and our loved ones too. Come, O Holy Spirit, all our hopes renew. That was the alto part. I found another one that I... Alright, it's written in F. One day my soul was saved from the fall, and then the Spirit came into my soul, waiting for His return, His face to see, go sailing through the air with Him ever be. I am waiting for the dear Lord, oh how I yearn for His return. Fire is burning deep in my soul, reeling me on the heavenward way. Night and day, all the way I have a song. He is near, always cheers, guide me along. As I wait, I'll sing and be true, telling God's love each passing day. We usually paid or an alto lead, sometimes a tenor lead, but
Did you do any that staggered and went back and forth? And
I would do what?
you know, a sort of call and response type song where
Yeah,
they
that's
go
what-
back and forth, and the lead
That's
switches.
What this
Yeah.
one was.
Mm-hmm.
There's this I am waiting for. There's this
Mm-hmm.
what do you call that?
I don't know what you call it, but I know what you mean.
But you can see it, if you come look at it, you can see where I take the lead, I am waiting, and then they come in with the
Mm-hmm.
second words after it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an afterbeat type thing. I am waiting for the dear Lord, oh how I yearn for His return. Fire is burning deep in my soul, cheering me on the heavenward way. Night and day, all the way I have a song. He is near, always cheers, guide me along. As I sing and be true, giving His love each passing day. And I'm not getting these words right because I can't see them good. Find me.
No, it's absolutely perfect right where it is.
Well, now, where all questions have you got
Let's
there?
see, what questions? We've got where you were born and your family, religious upbringing. You were, I guess, your religious upbringing was Church of God?
Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist.
Moved all over here.
How you like my baby?
Isn't
she beautiful?
Pretty.
She's beautiful.
She is. Let's see. I think we got those.
I've always been a deacon's kid.
A deacon.
My dad's been a deacon as long as I could remember. And always sang in a choir at the church, wherever we were.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Choirs are only the big churches seem to have choirs anymore.
Yeah. It didn't used to be that way.
Everybody's too busy.
Didn't used to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, we had an adult choir and a junior choir and a children's choir. And our church wasn't extremely big.
Mm-hmm.
But even the ones that we went to when we were full-time RV, and my husband and I, we were full-time RV, and we were in Texas, they even had 2 or 3 choirs at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There, and took the little ones in and had specific music ministers for the children, for the teens, and for the adults, you know. But that's a big church.
Right, and I think that tradition is probably stronger down south, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And the family singing is so much stronger down south. The minute we go down there, we hear the most amazing, pure voices coming out of children. You never hear that up here.
Yeah.
It's just something in the water, I guess, down there.
Well, you hear a lot of these singers that are, especially the black people, that said they started singing in church.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them I've noticed start singing in church.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, down there they don't seem to, up here it's more putting on a show type thing. Down there is just to bring it out and get it out of your soul, I guess. I don't know.
I have the sense, too, that down south, there are a lot of evangelicals, and they want their children to be raised in the church, and they want their children they want to keep them under wing and at their side, and having a family singing group is one way to travel together as a family and keep those kids reined in.
Yeah. Well, now see, I don't know if you remember it or not at the concert or not, but Paul leaned over and noticed when you were singing Jesus Hold My Hand,
Mm-hmm.
he leaned over and whispered in my ear, do you see Stephen singing along with him? And I said, yes, so am I. I said, look at Stephen's foot. And his foot was...
Mm-hmm.
So I says, he's feeling every bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I cut my teeth on songs like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think Steve cared anything about it. Because he was into the Grateful Dead and all that time, you know, back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So apparently it did get through to him.
Yeah. I think people come around to their roots somehow.
Yeah, I asked the pastor one time, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he won't depart.
Yeah.
I said, Pastor, how old do they have to be? He says, I don't know. But it made me feel awful pleased to hear him sing His Eyes on the Sparrow.
Yeah.
Because I knew my boy was all right.
Yeah.
Once he could get that out of his heart.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Other questions I have was, you told me a little bit about this already, but what was it like to record in those days? You mentioned that one recording you made, but where did you record this whole album?
They were all at the same place.
So he just transposed them onto an LP. So you did.
Oh no! Who put them on the? Who put them on the disc? You mean who put them on the LP?
Right. I assume it was 45s that you
Yeah, they're all like this.
Yeah.
And there was 8 at the time. We just did one right after the other.
Okay, so this is one song that's up there.
It's 2, one on the front, one on the back. But I
Okay.
forgot which. The Land of Perfect Day is on one side, but I forgot what's on the other side.
Okay.
And the Land of Perfect Day was one with the alto lead.
Right, so they were all 75 RPM recordings.
Yeah.
And they were cut right there in the furniture store.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Where did he get his recording equipment from? Nashville?
He was from WSIX in Nashville. Came down because we used to go up.
And what was his name? Do you
Oh
remember?
gosh, I don't know. I remember our announcer was Ron Smith, but I don't remember what the guy's name was that cut. I have
So
no
this
idea.
is just somebody that came from a radio station with a gizmo that cut records.
Yeah, And you could see the curling things as they cut it. You know how the curling
Yeah. The wax.
the wax or whatever they call that, as they would, and he'd have to keep it pushed
Around the
away.
grooves.
You know.
Yeah.
But we used to, with me being in school at the time, we couldn't go on Sunday morning and get to Nashville in time because we were about, I'd say 2.5 hours away from Nashville, driving good speed on Highway 70. They didn't have interstates back then.
Mm-hmm.
And the program came on, I don't remember if it was 7 o'clock in the morning or when on Sunday morning, but we'd go up on Friday night and cut the program on Friday night. Mm-hmm. And they would record the program on Friday night and then play it back on Sunday morning. But I don't know how...
By the program, you mean you did an actual radio show?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
So so cutting the record is a different issue from...
Yeah.
You were doing a radio
Cutting
show.
the records was... They did all of those records at one time, but the radio program itself was an every week thing.
So how did the radio program work? Tell me how one of your radio shows would have gone.
I have no idea how the mechanical business.
No, I don't mean mechanically. I mean, did somebody come out and announce you? And
no. Henry was
preaching or just singing or.
It was a certain time of the morning, and they would announce it's time for the Dickson Rangers. And Henry would come on with his announcements, and we'd get letters. I had a picture here, Joe's got it now, where we've got a picture like us standing behind the piano with the letters piled on top of the piano that came in with requests. Mm-hmm. And if we could, we filled a request when they would send a letter in, to sing at a certain Sunday morning. But they also did what they called remote control. I don't know if I can't explain that either. But from Nashville, we went from Nashville to Paris, Tennessee, and from Paris, Tennessee, back to Camden, Tennessee by remote control. So we were in three stations at one time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how they did that mechanically. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
was it an hour long or half hour long show?
Half hour, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a half hour. I know one time we were coming to Camden. We stopped at Camden on our way to another place to sing, and they had recorded the thing Sunday, recorded the thing Friday night for Sunday morning on WSIX, and so we stopped by the remote station in Camden, and we were going to do that in person. And as the time rolled around, I shouldn't tell you this. As the time rolled around, Mother wasn't able to play, and I was going to do the dum bring us in with the first song, And when I went in, we were late, and I hit the piano bench, and when I did, it broke, and I went to the floor, and Henry said, "Well, there goes Shorty, right on the floor, right on the air." And he says, "We'll try that one again." So we got a chair and put it up. We started over again. And it was like, turn your radio on, And so I said it takes a lot to embarrass me, but they couldn't see me because it was radio, but they heard me.
Right.
And so that came on with a bang. And that continued for as long as we had the WSIX station, we had that,
Yeah.
By remote control, but I don't know how they did that.
Did you ever play on the Opry?
No.
No.
Been on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the stage with Hank Williams, not with Hank Williams, but where Hank Williams stood and Loretta Lynn and all of them stood, but I never sang on the Opry.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever sing with didn't you tell me that you sang with the Happy Goodmans or on the
we
same
were on the
show,
programs
maybe?
together.
Yeah.
We were on the programs with us. Ben Spear, as the youngest Spear family member, he and I were teenagers at the same time. And I couldn't stand that man. I thought he was so stuck up, but he was a real smart guy. Wrote songs and played the piano, but he was kind of,
snooty.
Yeah, I hope he's mellowed a little bit since then. But anyhow, he had two sisters, Mary Tom and Rosanelle, And Rosanelle played a piano. I mean, she could make it talk. Mary Tom could play too, but not like Rosanelle, because Rosanelle played for the group. And then Brock and his wife, Mom and Pop Spear. We've been in concerts with them before.
Do you remember the singing school tradition down there?
Singing Spirit?
Singing school tradition.
Singing school tradition.
Yeah. Is it Vaughn? Who was it?
Stamps Baxter and
Yeah,
Vaughn.
yeah.
We were Stamps Baxter singers. We didn't like the Vaughn books too much because they were too high.
Yeah.
They pitched the songs too high. We did a couple of Vaughn songs, but not very many.
Yeah.
One of our favorite ones was Albert Bromley. I loved almost always any song he played or wrote. Right. You know, we loved his songs.
He was Jesus, Hold My Hand. And,
oh yes, oh yes. Yeah. He did one, Eddie. I told Paul I call it the Pharisee song. I know you've heard it before. If anyone makes it, surely I will.
Can you hum it?
Surely, this is of course, surely I will, Lord, surely I will. If anyone makes it precious, Lord, surely I will. I'm bound for Mount Zion, way up on a hill. If anyone makes it precious, Lord, surely I will. It starts off, if working and praying has any reward, then surely some morning I'll see my dear Lord. And it's to me, it's, oh, look at me, what I've done, you know, and I'm going to make it to. And Paul says, well, that's one way to look at it. But I said, that to me is a Pharisee song.
Yeah.
But it is a gorgeous song. And I said, Albert Brumley, what's the matter with you that you wrote a Pharisee song? Because he's done so many beautiful songs.
Yeah.
I can remember in Cleveland at Akron Baptist Temple when I was very young. And we would do I'll Meet You in the Morning. There was a gentleman that would come up and shake hands with me after the singing was over, and every time I took my hand away, I had $50 in my hand. And so one day, he wouldn't let go of my hand, and I wondered what was going on, and he says, I need to tell you something. I said, okay. He says, when you sing, he said, make sure you sing your words properly. You're saying, I'll meet you, in the morning. He said, say, I'll meet you in the morning. And that has stuck with me all my life. All my life. In fact, the night of the concert, then I was running over a song with Paul, the song that I sang, The Man in the Middle. Paul said, Marian said, you need to enunciate a little bit plainer. You're saying the man on the right was a sailor. I says, no, I didn't. He was a sinner. I don't know if he was a sailor or not. He says, enunciate a little bit better. So that has stayed with me. And I notice now when somebody say, I'll meet you, or you know, chew instead of you.
Yeah.
I notice it. So little ones learn a lot. Sometimes if it sinks in, they'll learn.
A $50 in the palm probably helped.
Yeah, it
Made
did. I'm
that
sure
much more
it did.
memorable.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
So when you were with the quartet, you traveled just mainly around Tennessee and...
Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. We went to Copper Hill, Georgia, I remember.
Where in Alabama?
Oh, mercy. Gadsden. I don't know that I've ever been in Gadsden since then either.
Sand Mountain, Alabama. There's a lot of shape note singing that goes on out of Alabama. I have friends that are real serious shape note singers and go to shape note singings everywhere, all over the United States, still very alive and well. But there are two traditions, I guess, the 5-note shape note singing and the 7-note. And the 5 note is very different. It sounds very almost medieval.
I'm not familiar with the 5 note.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the 7 note. It's just shape notes to me.
Yeah. Well, it's all in a book called The Sacred Harp. You've probably seen it. I don't know. But it's called Sacred Harp Singing. And they have their own hymnal, and it's just a fa, sol, la.
Fa, sol, la, do, re.
I don't know which 5.
How do they get away from how do they get away from the other 2?
They do, though.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. That's 6. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's 8. Do and do.
I'd
7.
have to ask them
7.
which 5, but it's only 5 notes that they use.
Huh. And it sounds medieval.
It sounds really strange. I'll have to show you a little recording or something.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
Or play
that.
you something that's.
I'd love
and
to
they
hear
all
that.
sing. They sing in parts, but they all sing. They kind of mark the beat with their fingers, and it's just very different, otherworldly to me.
I don't care for the singing where they sing the note like fa, 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 sol, sol, sol. I don't care for that.
Yeah.
I don't follow that at all.
I think it's interesting.
Not to me. To me, if you know the note, sing the word.
Yeah.
but I wasn't taught to do that either.
Yeah. It's a little cult.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
In fact, I wish Evie that there's no way to do it. I started to say I wish they would do away with the regular music and go to shape notes, because then I could play what's put in front of me by looking at the note. But
It's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen.
No. I'm just watching this because I don't want
It's
it to
not
run
gonna
out.
happen.
It's an hour-long tape. I have another one, but I just don't want it to run out.
It's not going to happen. I wish it would, but it's not.
So tell me when you married and how you got away from the quartet.
When I married.
What happened in your life subsequent to the quartet? When did that sort of come apart?
Okay, when I graduated, my dad had already had to go back to Cleveland to find work, because where he worked in Tennessee, they closed the place, and he went back to Cleveland to find work. And Mother was working at Dickson, and I was finishing high school. So Daddy came down for my graduation, and I graduated in Dickson. They had the school auditorium. They had a great big Dickson County Singing Convention meeting at the school auditorium as a going away occasion for us, because we were going to move back to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all different quartets that had sung with us, different trips and everything. And so we moved back to Ohio, and our quartet disbanded. And I met my husband at church in Cleveland. Oh, let's see, when did we move back up there? 1951 I graduated. We moved back in 51, and I went to school in Virginia for a short time in Emory, Virginia. I was engaged to a Methodist preacher, and we found out we felt more like brothers and sisters than we did sweethearts, so we broke that off. And I went back to Cleveland and was at church one time, and my husband-to-be was sitting in front of me with 2 of his friends, and I looked over, and when I came in to sit down, he was showing his driver's license, and I said, wow, because he had several where he'd had tickets on his driver's license, and I said, wow, that's all I said. He turned around and I met him. That was in August. Married him in November. And we were active in church and Youth for Christ. In fact, the Youth for Christ of Cleveland minister is the one that married us. Florian Manis is the one that married us. And that's where we dated, was at Youth for Christ meetings, in Cleveland, Greater Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And let's see, I'm narrowing this, I'm compositing this. he always wanted to go back to Alabama. We married in 53, and he always wanted to go back to Alabama, move on the river, have a house on the river, and everything. So he put in an application at Ford Motor at Sheffield, Alabama, which is his stomping ground because he was from Tuscumbia. That's where Helen Keller was born, in case the name sounds familiar.
Mm.
And a friend of ours that was sitting with him when I met him at church was a public relation man at Ford. So he put in a word for him at Sheffield and got him on down at Sheffield, Alabama. And they called me one day when my husband was at work in Cleveland, and said he's scheduled to report to work Monday morning at Sheffield, Alabama. So I put an emergency call to him at the plant, which I never did. Under threat of death, I never called him at the plant, because he's all over the plant, electrician, you never know where he'd be. So I called him and told him the situation. He said, pack up. He says, we'll leave out here tonight. So meanwhile, our house was up for sale, and we got down there, and they put him right to work. We had one car, and so in order for him to get to work, I had to call my mother and dad back in Cleveland, Ohio, to come down to Alabama to get us, to take us back to Cleveland to sell the house, and then be able to move back to Alabama. So, it was a mess. And where am I from them? My kids didn't want to leave. They had formed friendships at school, and Mother kept saying, you'll form new friends that just treat everybody the same way, and so we didn't want to leave Nana and Granddad, and so they decided they would move back to Tennessee, which was their roots. And so within a few months, they had moved back to Tennessee, and we were in Alabama. And Mother died in Tennessee in 1967.
So how many years did you live in Alabama?
31.
Did you do any singing there?
At church, revivals, and I had concerts at some of the churches. I used to have, I've had Western concert, I've had sweetheart banquets in Methodist Church, Baptist Church, Red Bay, which is where, wait a minute, what's her name? Used to be married to, she was a hairdresser. Divorce.
Oh, Tammy Wynette.
Tammy Wynette from Red Bay, Alabama. Sang at her church.
So then how did you end up migrating up to New Hampshire? That's quite a change from Alabama.
Well, my husband and I called it quits after 41 years. And I won't go into that, but it could be detailed, but I won't go into that. But after 41 years, I decided that I would be better off without him. So I left him and moved in with my daughters in Huntsville, Alabama. And then they got a job location in Maryland, both of them did. And so I moved up to Maryland with them. And I had a bedroom set, but that was all I had. And they moved that in, and I said, well, being as how we're going to come up this way, I said, let me go by see Stephen and Debbie, and then I'll come on over to Maryland. But when I got to New Hampshire, Debbie wouldn't let me leave. She didn't work. She had 2 teenagers. She needed the help, she said. And so I stayed here with them about 3 years, living with them. And then, without going into detail on that, I finally got an apartment here And I've been here for 4 years. And I've got grandkids and kids scattered all over the country.
And what took you to the Union Church? How did you get to the East Hampstead Union Church?
Believe it or not, Debbie's the one that found it. We were out riding around one time. I had been going to Island Pond, and it wasn't friendly. I didn't care for it because nobody would speak to me. And you know how that would grind. So I came home complaining about it one day. I mean, they never went with me. I went by myself, but I just didn't enjoy it because nobody was friendly. So she says, well, maybe, I says, we need to find a smaller church. It's just too big. They had 3 services for one thing.
Yeah.
And I said, it's just too big a church. I can't relate to one that's that big. So she says, well, there's a little one over here above Dunkin' Donuts, you know. She says, have you thought about that? And I said, no. So we were out driving one afternoon, and we pulled into the driveway. And I had a paper and pencil out. I was going to take the information off the front sign when Paul came out of Faith House to check and see what if he could help us anyway, you know. And he said, he told me later, they had just gotten through with a yard sale and getting stuff separated for a yard sale. And he told me later, he said, when you 2 drove up, he said, I'm thinking, oh no, here's some more yard sale stuff, you know. Thought we were bringing something to drop off for the yard sale. And so I began questioning them up one side and down the other about what their beliefs was and what their doctrine was. And first one thing and then another, I wanted to make sure. And I had been at a church in Huntsville where one of the deacons was divorced, and I didn't go along with that at all. But I didn't have any say about it, you know, because I had joined after this had happened, so I didn't have no say about it. But I asked him about that, and he said, yeah, they had divorced people in the churches. And so I asked him what all was going on and what they were doing and this and that. And he asked me would I like to see the church, and I said yes, I would. So he took me inside, and when that front door opened, I don't know if you've heard my testimony or not, but the song, when I walked through the door, I felt his presence, and I knew this was a place where love began, and I felt his presence. I said, I feel the presence of the Lord in this little church. And to me, it was just like my little church in Camden, where I'm supposed to be buried. I'll be buried from there. And I said, this is my church. Right here is where I belong. And so then we talked a little bit later, a little bit more, and they had a little organ at the time, but Sonia was gone to Nova Scotia. Midge was in Alabama, in Georgia, and Florida. So they had nobody playing the organ or the piano, you know. And I said, well, I play. You do? And I said, yes. He says, well, how about that? So he asked me would I be there Sunday, and I said, yes, I'll be here Sunday. So he called me up to the piano Sunday morning, and Eddie, you know I don't read music. He called me up to the piano because I couldn't play that organ, that little organ, and he called out a number I had never seen before in my life.
He does that a lot.
And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I can't play this because I don't know it. What do you mean you don't know it? I said, I can't read what it says. I don't read music. I play by ear, and I don't know this. So he says, well, could we pick out another one? I said, sure. So I forgot what it was, Count Your Blessings or something, you know, and I didn't have any problem with it. So he told me, he said he felt right then that was where the Lord wanted me because I could play the piano and I could play the organ, you know. That's where I've been ever since.
So that's how many years? That must be less years than 10 then, because he's just been there 10 years.
It's less. Well, let's see. This concert was the 7th one. So it's about 8 years, I guess. And I asked if I could have a concert for the church to bring in some extra money because I knew we were struggling financially, and he said, yeah. So the first one I had, they had you weren't there at the time, they had what they called the heifer fund.
Yeah, I know what
You're
that is.
familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the first concert put the heifer fund over the $5,000 amount they had stipulated they wanted. The young people there were good enough, back then to attend. And so the second one was also the heifer project. But the first one, a part of the concert put them over the $5,000 mark. The second one, I think they got another $5,000, but it wasn't all from the concert. The concert brings in about anywhere from $300 to $500. And year before, is either last year I think, I was not complaining, but moaning the fact that more of our people don't support it. And I said, we need them so bad. I said, they're not letting me down, they're letting the church down. I said, we need that so badly. And so I was complaining because we'd only made $300 and something at the concert, And so the next Saturday, my concert was one Saturday, and the next Saturday was the penny sale. And when I came in to help at the penny sale, Paul said, sit down. And I said, well, okay. I says, I need to do. He said, sit down. I said, yes, sir. And I sat down. He said, you know how you complained about not enough money for the concert? And I said, yeah. He says, somebody gave us a check for $1,000. And I said, praise the Lord. To this day, I don't know who did it. But they gave $1,000 check for the concert for the church funds, which brought it up to $1,300 something, which is most it's ever done.
Yeah.
And it just thrilled me to death. And so that's why this particular year, with all the variety, I kept hoping this would be what would trigger the church into attending because of the variety. But you saw.
Yeah.
You saw what happened. They just don't want to do it some reason or other. So we got a little over $300 this time too. But every little bit helps.
Well, you bet.
And I think people generally enjoyed every bit of it.
Oh, I think so too.
Except now Marilyn told me, she said I wasn't feeling good, and when I started singing, that's when I got sick. I said, don't you ever say it's because you sang. I said, you won't ever be willing to sing again then if you use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, I won't say that. I said, all right.
I think the two of you should do another duet together. You did really nicely on the one that I heard.
I'd love to do one with Paul someday, but I can't sing harmony and play.
Yeah.
Somebody else would have to play it. If Midge could play it for us,
Yeah.
But I enjoyed singing with you and Steve and my Steve.
Yeah.
That was a
fun.
hoot.
Yeah,
That was a hoot. Hadn't sung that in a long time.
Yeah, it was good. My Steve really got going with his break on that too. I've rarely heard him play so well. And now when I want him to play a nice break, I'll tell him, do a break like Do Lord. And
Well,
he'll really wail into it. He was playing blues notes and everything. He never does that.
Woke him up, did it?
It did. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do that again. I'll tell you we will.
Well, forgive me for removing the picture from the wall, but I want you to point out who is who on the picture.
Oh, this is my mom.
Hold it up.
pictures-
Hold it up this way.
Oh,
a
I'm
little
sorry.
bit. Yep, that's right.
Her picture's over there on the middle of the wall.
Okay. Hold on. I think we need a little bit more light. You don't
Okay.
have an overhead, do you? Well, let's see. Turn the picture a little bit. Nope. More the other way. More. Okay, that's good. Now point. You'll have to hold it just like that and point.
Okay, this is my mother. This is my father. This is me. This is Everett Morgan. And this is Henry Reagan.
Let's see if I can zoom in on the picture. And that's the Dickson Rangers.
That's the Dickson Rangers. And this is WSIX up here in Nashville. It's the second largest radio station in Nashville. Or was at the time.
Mm-hmm. And what year was that picture taken, do you think?
It must have been 48, 49, somewhere around there.
So you started, what year do you think you started singing? When you were a little girl and used to stand up on the stool?
Well, let's see, I was born in 32. So it must have been 39.
And here, I'll let you hold this, Marian. And
I don't even know what it says.
let's see. It says Dickson Rangers Quartet, Good News, and the Land of Perfect Day. And did Joe tell you how he got it? No.
Could have knocked me over with a feather, though. See, I don't even know where you got that picture there, because I don't have one of those.
Yeah. So you don't have any of your records?
None whatsoever.
Here, I'll take it back from you. And that one's in good shape, too.
Yes, it is. And to think it's 50-something years old.
Yeah. And recorded in a furniture factory.
Furniture store, not a factory.
That's right. I keep saying that.
I know that's not where it should be, but I mean the lower picture needs to go up.
Yeah.
But I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah. Well, I have, let's see, let me turn this off.
You're gonna
No, I...
hope you run out of film. Okay, you want to know what I do for pastime?
Yeah.
We have, right now we've got a church fair going on at the church, which will be for 3 weekends. And a lady bought this the other day, and she said she never could find